Your S185 throws a code, the machine goes dead still, and the fix is lifting your boot off the pedal. That one's W3235, tilt handle or pedal not a neutral. It isn't a fault, it's a refusal. So let's decode the real codes, cheapest fix first, and what to check before you call the dealer. Because the panel isn't being cryptic, it's being literal. Most operators just never learn to read it. Start with what you're looking at. Get into the service code screen and the codes come up listed. If more than one code is present, they scroll. The display shows the code number and the description. Newest code sits in position 1. When new codes come in, the oldest one drops off the list. That matters more than it sounds. Keep cranking and testing and you can push the first code off the screen. Like clearing your notifications before reading the one that mattered, write the codes down first, all of them. 2 messages on that screen aren't faults at all, and the first one trips people constantly. It's REPL way. RE per Y means an instrument panel isn't communicating with the controller. The machine's fine. The conversation broke. The second is code. That's the controller asking for a password. Nothing's wrong. It wants the keypad. Now the warning that saves your credibility. Don't trust the digit decoder charts floating around the forums. There's no universal legend where a suffix always means short to ground. Code systems differ between machine generation. You look the exact code up in the exact table for this machine. Exact code, exact meaning, nothing inferred. Cheapest tier first, and it's bigger than you'd think. These are the codes where nothing is broken. The neutral family. Lift and tilt each get a code for the handle or pedal not sitting in neutral. The handle codes mean your hand or foot moved it. The actuator codes mean the machine can't see neutral. Same shape, different culprit. One of them is you, one is the sensor. The panel keeps them separate. Them in 1 to 1. Seat bar sensor out of range high. Sit down and check the bar is actually seated. Interlocks are the cheapest repairs on this machine because usually there's no repair. There's a position not met. Fuel level low has its own code. Yes, really. And men have hauled machines to town over it. Related and stranger. Fuel level out of range. The tank isn't the problem. The sender's reading something impossible. That's the pattern the whole table runs on. And once you see it, the panel stops feeling random. The controller doesn't sense parts. It senses circuits. Voltage in a wire, and whether that voltage makes sense. Out of range means the signal is outside anything real, usually wiring, connector, or sensor, not the component. Short to battery, short to ground, open circuit, those are wire conditions with names, not part failures. So a huge share of this table is describing a wire, and wire is the cheapest thing you own. If that just reframed the panel for you, that's exactly what this channel is for. Stick around. Which brings up the check the manual puts ahead of everything. Corroded or loose grounds cause strange symptoms. Check grounds and positive leads first. A bad ground throws codes and circuits it never seems to touch. Then the connectors at the controller. Make sure each one is locked in, not just resting in place. Then the pins. Pushed back, bent, loose. A pin that's backed out reads exactly like a failed part. And check the fuse holder for loose spade connectors. 4 checks. No parts, no dealer, no invoice. Middle tier now, where it starts costing something but still nowhere near what you're quietly afraid of. New 117 air filter plugged. The panel tells you before the engine tells you, which is the entire point. The outer element gets serviced on its own schedule. The inner one gets replaced every 3rd outer change. Miss that, and you'll chase a power complaint that has nothing to do with the pump you're blaming. Hydraulic side, Mintalv 17 hydraulic charge filter plugged. That's a filter talking, and a filter is a cheap conversation. There's a sibling code for that charge filter not being connected. Somebody did the service and skipped a step. The maintenance chart even ties the filter change to its own code, on top of the early break-in change. Now the temperature families, and this is where good operators still make the expensive mistake, usually on a hot afternoon. Hydraulic oil temperature high isn't a shutdown. It's the first sentence of a paragraph you don't want finished. Because the table has a second rung, extremely high. Then a 3rd rung that stops the machine entirely. Same 3 rungs for engine cooled temperature. High, extremely high, shutdown. The machine escalates before it acts. That's the real design of this panel. It warns twice, in writing, before it takes the machine away. And out of range on those same temperatures means something else. The sensor's lying, not the oil boiling. Which is why panic is expensive. Those two look nearly identical on screen and cost wildly different money. Cooling side, the hydraulic fan carries its own codes. Short to battery, short to ground, open, overcurrent. Read those as a fan circuit fault. And a fan that isn't turning is what wrote your temperature code. That's the chain worth holding in your head. One dead circuit, then a temperature warning, then a shutdown. Hard start season next. Glow plug output has codes for error on, error off, open circuit, and failure. Cold morning long crank, no code. That's fuel or battery. A cold morning with a glow plug code isn't. The starter has that same spread of output codes, and then relay codes of its own on top. That distinction is the whole diagnosis. Output codes point at the circuit. Relay codes point at the relay. Same story on the fuel pull relay and the traction pull relay. Little parts, big symptoms, small invoices, and when the manual lists no start checks, the flywheel RPM sensor and its wiring are sitting on that list. Engine speed no signal is exactly that conversation. The engine may be turning. Nobody is counting the turns. Brake solenoid wiring should read 12 volts. That's a meter, 5 minutes, and a question you'd otherwise pay for. M3128 interrupted power failure. The controller lost power mid-thought. Usually a battery cable or ground, not the controller. M3204, work group no communication. Now the controller can't talk to a whole section of the machine at all. Worst case, and it isn't what most people guess. It isn't the engine, it's hydraulic charge pressure. Charge pressure runs the same rungs, out of range low, out of range high, and finally a shutdown. Low charge pressure is the hydrostatic system losing its supply. That's your drive system and it doesn't heal. MO515 is that shutdown. By the time it appears, the machine already decided running was worse than stopping. Here's the part that costs people a pump. The warning codes arrive before the damage. The shutdown arrives after. So the minutes between them are the whole ball game. The biggest repairs on this machine happen inside them. Engine speed escalates the same way. High, extremely high, out of range, no signal, and then shutdown. Any shutdown code is one message in different clothes. The machine picked damage control over finishing your day, which is why an operator who writes the codes down and stops is worth more than one who's fast. One caution, the manual repeats hard, certain checks and adjustments are for authorized Bobcat service personnel only. The hydraulic relief valve is the example. There's a stated ceiling, 3,300 psi, and exceeding it does damage. The procedure even warms the fluid first, because cold oil hands you a reading that simply isn't true. Same reason the first pull of the morning feels sluggish and you blame the machine. It's just cold. So before you call, write every code down in order before you cycle that key even one more time. Then grounds, positive leads, locked connectors, bent or backed out pins, and the spade connectors in the fuse holder. A large share of what you pay for is a position not met, a plugged filter, or a backed-out pin. The rest is real, and the shutdown codes are the machine telling you exactly which half you're in. The exact specs and procedures are in the service manual linked below. Like this if it saved you a guess. Subscribe for daily diagnostics. Next one's the hydrostatic drive and how it dies quietly. Write the codes down.